Welcome to Legends of Change, a program that brings you gripping stories from people close to you. In this episode, we feature an incredible woman called Kristofina. Having been born in the north, Kristofina Wahengo was born deaf. Being the only deaf member in her family, she decided that she wants to be anything but ordinary. Most concerning issues around deaf children and adults center on communication difficulties and isolation. Most deaf children are the only ones in their schools and families, and as a result, they have significant issues in terms of social isolation. However, luckily for Kristofina, her family made it a priority to learn the sign language.
My name is Kristofina. My surname is Wahengo. I am 32 years old. I was born in the village called Onangulo, and my mother is a lecturer at the university and my father owns a pharmacy. I've got one brother and two sisters. I was born deaf. In my family, I'm the only deaf person. Everybody else is hearing. I was fortunate to start school at the age of 4 at the clash unit in Windhoek, which is the only specialized ECD. And then I started school at Nisa, and then I moved to Elua when my mother moved there, I think for 2 years. And I came back to Windhoek again to continue at the school for the deaf in Windhoek until grade 10. After that, I moved to Cosmos, which is a mainstream school, until I was in grade 12.
Luckily for Kristofina, her family made it a priority to learn the sign language and be more supportive from the beginning.
While I was growing up, I went to school at Clash, whereby our parents could come in and learn sign language. And then they learned some sign language, like the greeting, the basic sign language skills. But then as I was growing up and I was aware of sign language, I decided to teach my brother sign language, as well as my sister and the rest of the family. So the communication became very easy because I was now teaching them and I was happy. My father is so busy with business, so I focused on teaching my mother, my sister and cousins, and we communicate until now.
After completing grade 12, Kristofina then discovered that she wants to represent more for fellow deaf people, especially the younger generation.
So when I finished grade 12, I thought of applying in South Africa at Worcester to do ECD training for 1 year. And when I finished, I came back to Namibia and worked at the clash unit for a while. And then I applied again to do a Montessori training, which was 3 years, it was on back and forth to study. But we were fortunate to get a sign language interpreter flown from South Africa who was very skilled for 3 years. So she would come and then interpret the course. And after that, I graduated. I applied at UNAM, where I studied an INSET program, and Olga was my interpreter for the 4 years there while I was studying. And then last year I finished and I graduated. So now I've become a professional teacher. Why? My goal is to encourage the deaf children, starting from pre-primary, to lay the foundation for the deaf, to know that a deaf person can become something in the future and have different careers they can choose from.
One of her learners had this to say about her.
Kristofina teaches good. She teaches to clean the classroom and help the children.
Kristofina's passion does not end at teaching her learners. She goes above and beyond to instill hope in youngsters at the school.
So at 12:30, when class ends for my children and they are gone home, I stay just to get ready for the following day. See that everything is in place, the lesson plans, the teaching aids, and then tomorrow it's easy when I come into the class to start teaching. But then from 2 on, I teach deaf children window of hope, for them to have skills in life, to guide them, to know how to deal with challenges in the world, where I work together with my colleague Olga and Colleen. And I also help the children in netball, teach them different sport codes, And at the hostel, I also supervise the learners, guide them. So that's some of the things I do.
Olga Jose has been Kristofina's sign language interpreter since her UNAM days, and they now both work at the school for the hearing impaired. She spoke to us about being Kristofina's mentor.
My name is Olga Jose Heiter. I'm the life skills teacher at the school for the hearing impaired. I at times also serve as an interpreter for the deaf. And yes, I'm a teacher. That's who I am. Growing up, I've always been passionate about languages. So the first time I met deaf people, I was like, wow, I would like to talk to them. I need to communicate, but how do I start off? So I started interacting with deaf people, and I would go to the schools like in the North Elua, where I would meet with deaf children, and they taught me sign language to communicate with them. I also serve as an interpreter on different occasions. Sometimes I volunteer because this helps me to communicate with different deaf people, and I'm able to know how to interpret for my different audience. Some are maybe advanced and some are intermediate, and also those who have little knowledge on sign language. The first time I met Kristofina was when I moved to the deaf school in 2010. She was a learner at Cosmos High in grade 11 and 12. And I was a teacher here. So when she comes back to the hostel, I met her, and we would also socialize on different occasions, and that's where I got to know her. But the relationship started more when she was called to study at UNAM for INSET program, and I was asked to be her interpreter from year 1 until she graduated. And currently we still share a good bond because I'm her mentor for pre-primary at the school, and most of the time I serve as her interpreter as well.
In layman's terms, mentorship means the act or process of helping and guiding another person to support their personal development. But as a mentor, one also gets to learn a thing or two from those that seek their guidance, which is what happened between Olga and Kristofina.
I've learned a few points from her. For example, I've learned perseverance, I've learned endurance, I've learned commitment and dedication, and the most outstanding one is she have taught me to refine my sign language skill grammar, which is something you continue learning, but with her I'm able to say I'm now probably a 70% skilled interpreter.
Apart from teaching, Kristofina plans to further her studies and obtain an honors and a master's degree in teaching.
For the future, I want to study more. Firstly, get my honors degree and then my master's. Every day I'll wake up from Monday to Friday. Why? Because of my role model, Debbie. She's from Canada. She was the first deaf teacher I saw. She set such an example for us. Every day when you come to school, she had all things in place. She taught. Her teaching was just on point. And she was well prepared, and she makes me become who I am.
Kristofina and Olga give us advice on issues that may be associated with the treatment of and communication with deaf people.
Yeah, the biggest challenge I have is like if I have to go to town alone, we can't communicate, so I always need to write. So that means my writing sometimes is not so correct, or I have to write and show the person, and then the person can say, okay, this is what you want. So most of the time I need to get an interpreter. Sometimes my family member go with them, but then sometimes I have to get another interpreter. Of course I have the confidence to go, but it will require me to write, and sometimes they don't understand it the deaf way. So really, writing is a challenge, but gradually I'm able to get there. Same here, for example, at school, not all my colleagues really know sign language, so sometimes I'm stuck on what I want to talk, so I need to go get one of the teachers to come and interpret, and then the person understands. So those are the challenges. And sometimes the challenges are people don't want to learn sign language, you can't force them, so it's their choice. There's nothing different about the deaf people. They are just the same with us. The only thing is they communicate through their hands. And you need to be a friend for them to befriend you. So do not be scared scared of them approaching them. They are very willing to teach people, and they are open-minded. They want to learn more about you, and you can also learn more about them. So the Centers for Learning Sign Language are out there in the country at NNAD, at CCDS. So please take the chance and learn sign language. I would urge the government to please make sure that they change the curriculum to cater for the needs of the deaf, because the deaf don't read that much, but they are more into seeing and dramatization and different things. So if they change the curriculum and make it deaf-friendly, the environment will be good for us, and there will be no segregation or separation. For example, what do you want to become then in the future? That's good. To work. Oh, wonderful. For a better education. Why is education important? For you to pass. So your mother and father brought you to school for education, for you to have a better future, ne? Our school has the Center for Early Intervention Center, which accommodates learners from the age of 3 to 5. So if you have a child at the age of 3 to 5, bring them. They don't need to be in the hostel. They can come from home because they've got transport that takes them home. Please bring the children as early as possible, because the earlier the better. You know, there's a lot of backlog due to language. The learner has to catch up with language. They need to learn English. So it will be difficult. But if they start off at the early stage, it will be a smooth process for them to learn. Not just the sign language, but also academically they can achieve. So the earlier the better, and they will also feel that they are part of the community. If your family member advises you on something wrong, should you accept? You remember to say no. It doesn't matter if it's your cousin or who, but as long as they're telling you to do something. Okay. For example, what do you want to become then in the future? That's good. To work. Oh, wonderful.